Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever this video finds you. I'm your teacher, Dustin Goolsby, and we are getting ready to go over homework. Well, a recap and then homework. But I've already recorded this once, the voice part of this. So here's the second time, hoping that this is actually working. Sounds like it's working. Is it working for you? Okay. I am going to go over this quickly, hopefully more quickly than I did the last time around. It took me like 10 minutes talking about all this. But, okay, recap. So, where the number 1 is on the board all the way over to the left, you'll see this really funny looking flared out trumpet tree, is what I called it earlier. But really, it's just taking the idea of the cylinders that you see above it, those 3 rectangles. We call those thumbnail sketches. They have cylinders in them. We did that first. We were kind of like, okay, if cylinders were overlapping, everyone, like all of them had to be touching or overlapping, how would you arrange these cylinders if you only had 3 of them? And right below that, you'll see these little dotted lines that are on like a grid of squares with dotted lines. Just think about those as imaginary lines. Those don't have to go on your paper. But if you think about those, if you grid out your artwork in your mind, or your blank canvas rather, into 9 little squares, or like 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. You can pick the top horizontal line or the bottom horizontal line and find where your table or your horizon line is. The horizon is the line, it's kind of an imaginary line, but you do see it with your eyes when you look way off into the distance. You'll see where the land meets the sky, or the mountains even. Um, or like the ocean, if you're looking out at the ocean, where the water meets the sky. That's your horizon line. So, generally in photography and art, you'll find that that line generally happens, the table, the horizon, whatever you want to call it, happens on one of those horizontal lines, either 1/3 down or from the top of the page, or 1/3 up from the bottom of the page. If that makes sense, good for you. If it doesn't make sense, go ask a parent. Um, or ask me next week and I'll tell you again. Okay, so back to where that little tree number 1 thing. I just told the students, like, think about if you have only the 5 3-dimensional shapes, in this case, just cylinders, and you were building like a tree-like object. In fact, we even went outside as part of today. And we went out and we looked at the trees after having this kind of coaching about the shapes, and just try to think about trees as a bunch of cylinders with like clumps at the end of them. And so if you think about it that way, it can make it easier. In fact, part of your homework today is going to be going outside and like not even trying to make it look like a tree, very obviously making a landscape out of very simple 3D shapes. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, the biggest thing I want to talk to you about is the t-shirt design. The t-shirt design is going to be really important. If you don't know what a stencil is, or better yet, it would almost be better for you to go to Google and type in lettering stencils. Lettering stencils. So the D and the G on the left, that's the way I would write my like my autograph on some of my artwork. I do like this funny looking G. But if I were to just write it, it would look like that. Now, if I were to make a stencil to where it had like some thickness to it, and it was really cool whenever like you use the stencil like with a spray paint or something like that, which by the way is what we're going to be doing. Um, you have to kind of do it in a way. You'll see this little white line that's going through the D. You'll see that in lettering stencils if you look them up. So there's a reason why the D isn't attached to the G, and it all has to do with the construction of the stencil, and that will make way more sense if you look at stencils online. So go ahead and do that, especially lettering stencils. And if you have a really intricate design for your t-shirt design, hold it. Don't get rid of it, because we will be doing a screen printing process later on in the year where we will be able to use something like that. But for now, just get something that's very basic because you're gonna have, the more work you have to do in that stencil, it's just gonna frustrate you. Pick something very simple, a heart, a star, um, anything from the Lucky Charms. No, just like a very simple shape is fine. You just want to make a stencil that you like that we can put on a t-shirt. There's a bunch of other shapes on here. Some of my students like to doodle on the board, so don't mind too many of them so far as instruction. But so far as inspiration, maybe you like some of these doodles and you like to copy them. Over in the homework section, you'll see that last week's homework is still up. Some of you didn't turn it in. Make sure that this homework is done by next week. Also, make sure that t-shirt design, or we'll be working on that t-shirt design. Remember, I wanted you to go outside and kind of think about just cylinders, cubes, spheres, pyramids, cones, and act as though those are your building blocks and create a landscape out of those. Make sure it's at least the size of a copy paper. So you can do like a little sketch, just kind of trying to figure out like, okay, if I know how to shade these shapes, and most things are made out of a more complicated version of these shapes, maybe I can just simplify it and act as though those 5 3D shapes were my building blocks, and I had an unlimited supply of each one of them, and I can just build a landscape. So go ahead and do that for me. So you're doing that that built landscape, and trying to get a good, simple t-shirt design, stenciled design, and I think that's it. I do believe that's it. So thank you for staying with me this long. Thank you guys for being awesome in class, and I will see you next week.